Good evening and welcome to the LaRouche Movement's weekly battle report. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd. I'm Michelle Aaron, your host. Now is an incredible moment of crisis and opportunity for humankind. In the West, we face perhaps a greater challenge than amongst developing nations, as we've been headed very much in the wrong direction for a very long time. To change that course is not impossible, but it requires courage, optimism, and cooperation. This past week, the LaRouche movement organized towards that end. Tonight, we will review organizing activity that was done this week in New York, United States, in Denmark, Texas, Mexico, Germany, and, very importantly, a new online platform of the news service of the LaRouche movement, the Executive Intelligence Review. We'll start with an intervention just this morning on that new EIR YouTube platform. The context is that underway internationally right now is an explosion of public discussion in the media with US President Donald Trump, with official channels of the Russian government about the proposal long championed by the LaRouche movement of the construction of a tunnel under the Bering Strait that would connect Eurasia with the Americas. This morning, the EIR News Agency YouTube platform hosted a phenomenal panel discussion on both the details of the engineering of the project, as well as political considerations for its application. Will it happen? Speakers on this panel included, from the United States, Scott Spencer, who is a chief project advisor to Intercontinental Railway. From Italy, Professor Enzo Siviero, who works, among other faculties, with the Rousseau Mediterranean des Écoles des Ingénieurs, so an engineering group. Also from Russia, we had a couple of speakers, including Dr. Alexander Bobrov, who is the head of Diplomatic Studies Division at the Institute of Strategic Studies. We have for you a short excerpt from the concluding remarks of one of the panel participants, the initiator of the discussion, Helga Zepp-LaRouche.
So I think the idea of infrastructure, connecting people and changing the mentality, by making people to grow into the one humanity, overcoming geopolitics and understanding that we are really sitting in one boat as the one mankind. I think that this Bering Strait is a very, very important step in that direction. So maybe we should continue this discussion in a few weeks or months from now, and hopefully we can spread this widely and get more people to support it.
Watch the whole discussion, very worthwhile. Now, to shift to this week's organizing reports, we will hear the remarks of U.S. political figure Diane Sare to the preceding panel, where she will draw out the U.S. context for the Bering Strait project proposal, including the massive No Kings rallies taking place last weekend to demonstrate against the US presidency, and how a transformative project like this will quickly shift the nation.
And I wanted to bring up something which everyone here has very kindly not mentioned, which is the horrific state of the United States right now, our physical economy, the political dynamic. As people may be aware, we just had, 5 million or 7 million people in the streets at these rallies last Saturday, saying no more kings. But I would say what's really going on is that you have an economic collapse. If you think about the places where President Trump has proposed to send the military, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, what do these cities have in common? They are port cities. What has happened to the port cities of the United States? Baltimore, a dear friend of ours, Ned Rosinski, did a study of the collapse of Bethlehem Steel, and then the city opened up to become a haven for drug trade, etc., with a huge percentage of the African American population going to prison. So I think that this idea is not just a nice idea. I think it is an urgent necessity for the United States to build it. Coming from New York, I was thinking about the effect of the Erie Canal, which opened up the entire middle section of the country to another port city, Manhattan. New York City right now has 1 out of 7 children who experienced homelessness in the last year. But imagine if a child of 5 years old could think that by the time I am 13 or by the time I am 15, I will be able to get on a train in New York City and travel to Alexandria in Egypt or China. And one thing that comes to mind, perhaps because of my growing up in the country, is the difference between a pond, which is stagnant, which has no water coming in and no water flowing out. What kinds of horrible bacteria and ugly things grow there? Brain-eating bacteria, maybe that's the problem we're having in the United States. But when you bring water flowing through, you create a directionality, you create a potential for growth. And if you think in your mind's eye of all of these port cities in the United States, which could be revitalized, having access through a rail corridor to China, India, Russia, 3.5 billion people, the complete transformation of the way we are thinking. And I think the decision to do this would change the thinking enormously of the entire American population to be able to think clearly, strategically, to not fall for the lower level types of division, survival of the fittest that happen when you are stuck in this little stagnant pond. And I'm just curious if some of the panelists have thoughts about this, because I think it's a very big deal. And I think the transformation could be virtually instantaneous if we had the vision to take hold of it.
We go now to another U.S. political leader, Jose Vega, congressional candidate in the Bronx District, Congressional District 5. So there was another public endorsement of Jose's congressional campaign this week, which we would like to watch. This was done by a young pro-Palestinian TikTok influencer who has 3.5 million followers on his platform. His name is Christensen, and he has had his own run-ins with Jose's opponent, Congressman Richie Torres. Torres has personally targeted Christensen for speaking out against the genocide. This video endorsement we're going to watch currently has over 30,000 views. So it is clearly important for the question of outreach to the younger generation.
AIPAC multimillionaire Richie Torres, who represents the Bronx, was caught investing in war companies that are fueling Israel's genocide as he was voted in Congress to buy bombs from the same war companies to fuel Israel's genocide. He's an AIPAC multimillionaire. Again, he's a representative of Israel. He's a foreign Asian, unregistered, working in our Congress, and he finally has a primary challenger. Jose Vega has entered the primary Democrat race against him. And I'm telling you guys, because I'm supporting Jose Vega, to go to my bio and support his campaign. If you live in New York City, if you're in the Bronx, volunteer. If you're not, please consider contributing your part to his campaign. We need to knock Richie Torres out of this seat. He is evil. He is profiting off genocide. He's a genocide profiteer. He's corrupt. He went after me over the summer, sicked the Capitol Police on me, smearing me in the New York Post. I mean, this guy's a douchebag. We were raising money to feed Gaza when he started to do this. He cannot be allowed to lead the American people. The Bronx need a real fighter like Jose Vega, who has consistently called out these pro-Israel, Israel-first politicians who have abandoned the Bronx to extreme levels of poverty and suffering. And Jose Vega is from the Bronx. He knows how to solve these things, and he's willing to fight, and that's why I'm backing him. Anyways, again, that link's in my bio. Go find it. Thank you, and free Palestine.
Also, on the question of youth outreach, let's go to the campuses. We're going to go to Denmark. We have a few photos from Roskilde University, where this week LaRouche movement organizers went to talk to students. And you'll see they have a few signs they put out for the students to engage with. One of them reads, "Stop Israel's Genocide, the Oasis Plan for Lasting Peace." The other, "Want to join a philosophical youth dialogue to shape the world? Carpe diem." So that was from a campus, a university, engaging with the students this week. Now, on the question of the ceasefire and potential reconstruction of Gaza, we have a report from LaRouche Activities Coordinator Tim Rush on an intervention he made this past Thursday at the annual conference of the Arab Center of Washington. The discussants at this conference, which included a robust in-person attendance as well as a live stream, were talking through their views, often complaints, on the current ceasefire process. Tim intervened, and I think you'll see how important his intervention was into a crowd of people who were well-meaning, but were lacking the fuller concept of the necessity of development.
Hello, this is Tim Rush, just at the end of an annual meeting of the Arab Center of Washington in Washington, D.C. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary. The theme was assessing the second Trump administration's policies toward the Middle East. I came in representation of the Schiller Institute and the Lyndon LaRouche organization. The tenor of the panelists, including a keynote address at the beginning from Chaz Freeman, Ambassador Chaz Freeman, was essentially discussing the deficiencies of the current pause in the fighting in the Middle East. It was sort of a relentless discussion of what's wrong, what is not being addressed. But none of it touched anything involving an economic policy to deal with exit from the dynamics of the killing. I got up out of order, intervened at the end of the panel to say, can we put on the table a water for peace policy of the kind that Eisenhower had fought for as ex-president in the 1960s, what had been, you really need a policy of defeating the desert, that there's an Oasis plan to do that, and that this has to be put forward as a central focus of discussion, that the common enemy of the whole region, of the peoples of the region, is the desert. The moderator shut down any further discussion at that point, said, well, sorry, we don't have time to pick this up. But I know that it made an impression on a number of the other people here. I've been able to make 12 or 15 contacts and distribute a great deal of literature around the LaRouche movements and the Schiller Institute's Oasis Plan. So the seeds are planted. A number of people turned out to be old friends of ours. An associate of Ambassador Hassassian of Denmark, who just gave a very important interview with Helga Zepp-LaRouche on the Oasis Plan. She was here, came up very eagerly to talk, So I think my intervention and the literature and circulating and the discussions were useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now we go to our weekly activities report from Mexico. We'll hear from Fabiola Ramirez.
Hello, this is Fabiola Ramirez from the LaRouche organization in Mexico. Today, in this report, I will briefly tell you about the activities we carried out this week. We attended a meeting with a group from the Socialist Party in an auditorium of the Mexican Electricians Union. At this meeting, we were able to give a report on the strategic situation, and due to this group's interest in forming a citizens' alliance against the national debt, we were even able to discuss the famous concept of the LaRouche movement, the banker's arithmetic, and the image of the 3-ton flea sucking the blood of the global economy. That same day, the rest of the team were at the Juarez Monument distributing a statement expressing our support for the agricultural producers' mobilizations that had taken place in more than 20 states across the country. We argued that Mexico needs grain production, not speculation on the Chicago Stock Exchange, and we also called for a farm credit bank. Another deployment we did was in the city center with our global land bridge banner. Here is my colleague Alan Rivera describing what the project is about and explaining the development corridor concept. We had our statements and the megaphone, and we contacted young students and other citizens to join the idea of creating a new paradigm, being themselves the citizens prepared to achieve it. Saludos and see you soon.
And you heard in the report, thank you, Fabiola, you heard some of our work to support farmers in Mexico who are presently engaging in mass demonstrations in, I believe, more than 20 states in Mexico to defend their right to produce food as against the speculators. If you check out the last week's EIR, the full weekly journal, it was issue number 40 of this year's EIR. You can find more coverage of these demonstrations from the Mexican farmers in an article written by Gretchen Small and Marcia Mary Baker titled "Mexican Farmers Launch Mobilization to Free Production from Speculation and Transnational Control." And the coverage includes the full text of an important message of support that was signed by 18 American farm leaders, something that we organized, I believe. 18 American farm leaders from 13 states. And that letter was read aloud in Spanish translation recently at a forum discussing restoring national agriculture in Mexico. Now, for something that you can do, that people can do, anyone, bring ideas out to others. Last night, Joe Jennings from our Texas team presented the idea of the Bering Strait Tunnel Project to the Houston City Council and to Houston's mayor, John Whitmer. Here's an excerpt from Joe's testimony. We include a link in the video description to his full remarks.
Good day, everyone. I'm Joe Jennings, representing the Schiller Institute, the LaRouche Organization, and EIR.News. I want to invite everybody here to participate in a live stream event that's going to happen at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning before the next time you guys meet on an amazing shift in policy and through one single piece of infrastructure that we should break ground on immediately, and that is a subsea rail and transport link under the Bering Strait from Alaska in the United States to Siberia and Russia. We want to place this on the table of President Trump and President Putin when they meet in Budapest, Hungary next month. Think about how this area was transformed by our city fathers, taking a muddy creek called the Buffalo Bayou and expanding it and deepening it and turning it into the magnificent Houston Ship Channel, which put this city on the map. Well, if we work on this project, we will also get enthusiastic support from the BRICS nations, including Russia, China, and India. These nations are not our enemy, but they do take issue with the way the dollar has been used to keep them in permanent debt slavery and subjugation, or figuring out different ways to finance development. Because, guys, the bubble of speculative finance, of derivatives, of Bitcoin, of sanctions, all the glue and tape that's holding the Western financial system of the rules-based order is coming down. What matters is the production of the physical basis for human life to sustain us all on planet Earth, okay? And this project would enable the U.S. to link into the spectacular growth that's erupting in Asia right now around the Belt and Road Initiative, which we should not see as a threat. I ask you to look favorably on this project and show up tomorrow morning. It'll be on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. And I would encourage our viewers to get out there likewise. Go to your city councils. Most city councils in their weekly or monthly meetings include the opportunity for public comment. And as in the case of Joe, the city council already live streams their meetings, so collecting the videos is much easier. We'd like to hear your reports. Get out there, organize, and send in the reports to info@LaRoucheOrganization.com. We'd love to show your organizing in next week's battle report. So lastly, another announcement on the new EIR platform, the Executive Intelligence Review, the news and analysis journal of the LaRouche movement for over 50 years, which we also have the daily alert going out to email boxes around the world with the best daily lead and a wonderful selection of news items every day. This grouping is now playing a more active role in distributing our uniquely effective, truthful, and important content. We launched tonight's report telling you about the panel discussion hosted on the platform this morning about the Bering Strait Tunnel. The upgrade also includes a new streaming program 3 days a week to feature interviews of prominent thinkers, as well as the content of our daily alert and weekly magazine. That show is hosted by Daniel Burke, co-hosted by me, and is tentatively scheduled for Mondays at 1 p.m., Wednesdays and Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. The first episode included a fascinating interview with His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Manuel Hassassian, who is the ambassador of the Palestinian Authority to Denmark. So you can find the EIR platform on YouTube. I found if you just type in EIR, perhaps a few things come up. I found EIR-LaRouche comes up very nicely. We'll also include a link in this video's description. Tonight we saw organizing activity around the world of the LaRouche movement over just the past week. Helga Zepp-LaRouche in Germany initiated a fantastic panel discussion with experts to flesh out the Bering Strait Tunnel Project. In the United States, Joe Jennings brought this proposal to Houston government layers. Diane Sare and Jose Vega have continued to provide crucial insights and leadership. Tim Rush intervened in the unfolding discussion of what will happen in Gaza with the bold yet necessary idea of the LaRouche Oasis Plan. In Denmark, organizers reached out to youth to engage them in taking responsibility for the direction of humankind. And in Mexico, consistent work is being done at campuses, street corners, among organizing layers like the farmers' movement and within institutions, aimed to bring Mexico into the fold of nations committed to development. So thank you for tuning in this week. Again, if you have any reports, please email them to us at info@laroucheorganization.com. If you don't yet have any reports, go out there and make them. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week.